Where's the beef?
It doesn't want to focus on you. One more time.
Alright. Where's the beef?
Out in the Louisiana marshes, salt and fresh water rush alongside each other, blurring together marsh and bayou. And if you look hard enough, you'll see something you might not expect. Swamp cows. You heard that right. Locals have deemed these wild cattle swamp cows. You're probably wondering, cows? What are they doing there? A few years ago, I had the same reaction. I was on a boat with two guides taking pictures of the Bohemia spillway for an article I was writing at the time, and then I saw them. I was baffled, of course. I spent my weekends and summers growing up in this area, swimming and boating up and down these channels. Never once had I seen any cows. Their response, "You've never seen a swamp cow?" "No, man, I've never seen swamp cows." Hey, editor Oscar here. At this point in editing the video, I was looking for good footage of the marsh to use and not cows since I didn't have any. But I just so happened to have footage from that same area from a year before my cow sighting. I wasn't even looking for cows in this footage, I was just looking for good footage to use for this documentary. But somehow, I came across one anyway. Coming around the corner, here it is. Somehow, out of 23-year-old videos, I found a cow. One that I hadn't even seen with my own eyes until looking through this footage. Now that I've proven that there are cows in the spillway, I'll go back to my original story with the guides. They then told me the local legends of how those cows got there. A family of longtime marsh cattle farmers owns these cows. Yes, this is a marsh, not a swamp, as the name implies. They check on the cattle and introduce new ones every few years or so. I was told that local ranchers and ranchers from out of state are brought in to deal with the cattle. Sometimes even literal cowboys are called in. But there's another theory, almost like the local legend of the Rougarou, that some of the cows are not owned, but wild bovine escapees. The theory is that in 2012, Hurricane Isaac lifted the cows out of their homes and into the marsh. So now you've got a large herd of strong, partially inbred cows roaming around. Of course, I tried to fact check this, and the only thing that I could find that might have some sort of connection is an article out of New Orleans in 2012. It talks about cattle ranchers and them trying to scramble to get their cattle back onto their land after Hurricane Isaac. I've sat on this story for 2 years, wondering if I should make the story myself or maybe pitch it at work. And one day I woke up and had an epiphany. I was going to make this video, and no one was going to stop me, and I was going to do it my way. So, I dove headfirst into researching cows. When I started doing research for this video, I couldn't find anything on swamp cows. I spent hours combing through the Louisiana State Library's collections and was finding nothing, not even pictures. That's when I reached out to my artist friend Claudine Diamond, who loves painting pictures of cows. I knew that if I couldn't find pictures or documentation of the cows, Claudine was going to bring my vision to life. Stay tuned for her final painting. It's gorgeous. Continuing my research, one book really stood out to me. Louisiana Cowboys by Bill Jones. It highlights the grazing of cattle in southwest Louisiana. Published 15 years ago, it says that the main industry of Louisiana used to be cattle grazing. When settlers came to Louisiana in the 1700s and saw that the grassland here was basically free feed for the cows. It highlights how the cowboys would bring their cows in the taller highland grass during the summer and hurricane season, and into the bayous, swamps, and marshes during the winter. Seeing the pictures of men on horses wrangling water-dwelling cattle, I knew this couldn't be a southwestern Louisiana exclusive thing. Turns out, Louisiana isn't the only place that grazes marsh-based cattle like this, although it is the main one. Countries across Europe have similar practices in areas with similar ecosystems to southwest Louisiana. Marshes are not only known for their capability to produce life, but also for holding carbon. It's said that the marshes around the world produce more oxygen than the Amazon rainforest. They also prevent carbon from decomposing plants from reaching the atmosphere by trapping them beneath their muddy beds underwater. Scientists call this phenomenon blue carbon, in reference to the surrounding water. It was at this point in my research that I wanted to get professional opinions on cattle grazing in marshes. That's when I started reaching out to environment-focused companies in the southeastern part of the state. I called the Coastal Protection and Restoration Agency, Pontchartrain Conservancy, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, and I was getting nothing. It seemed that no one really knew what I was talking about, at least when it came to cattle in the marsh. It wasn't until I called Louisiana Wildlife and Fisheries that I was thrown my first bone. After talking to the PIO, Renee LeBreton, I was pointed in the direction of a man who lived at the end of the world, Venice, Louisiana, who owns free-roaming marsh cows. That contact was Earl Armstrong Jr. Armstrong has dealt with cattle his whole life, raising them, feeding them, and taming them. And after a few hours on the phone with him, I knew that this was my lead. I'm not going to sugarcoat this. Making a day to see Armstrong was extremely hard. Armstrong has no internet presence, no TV, and only uses a flip phone. But somehow we managed to make it work and we got a date to go down and see him. I was ready to go, but the weather wasn't having it.
It rained, and then we had just a myriad of problems trying to get a schedule. Earl doesn't like to make a schedule. At any point, anyone could call him with Wildlife and Fisheries and ask to get out on his boat. But tomorrow is the day.
Armstrong grew up past the end of the world in a little town called Pilot Town, Louisiana, in the mouth of the Mississippi River. The town got its name over 100 years ago when it became the place for boat pilots to live. There's no way to get to the town without a boat or a helicopter, and the town was washed off the face of the map in 2005 when Hurricane Katrina hit. Luckily, before that, Armstrong and his family moved upriver to Boothville. Pilot Town has only 20 residents today. As excited as I was, I ran into another problem the day of.
Okay, so it's the next day. The guy I was going to bring out was sick. Also, forecast for today, rain. Whole day. Rain. Rain, 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 rain. Even though all week it said 4% chance of rain, it's rain. So, I'm bringing my dad. My dad is the kind of guy that thrives in natural disaster. He's just that kind of guy. If there was ever a hurricane, he was the guy that stayed home and rode it out. Even he's been texting me all morning about the rain, but you know what? I've filmed in worse. Like on some wood, okay? I've filmed in worse.
I picked up my dad and we started our 3-hour trek to Boothville, where Earl lives. His boat is in Venice, his cows are in Pilot Town, but Earl lives in Boothville. So, it's raining. Bad, just like I said. We're about 40 minutes out. And probably only going to be able to do an interview. At this point, we had lost all hope of getting the drone in the air. But right as we pulled up to the farm, the rain stopped. And everything really started to fall into place after that. Finally, we were face to face with a man I had spoken with over the phone for weeks. He led us to his office, a little wooden porch swing by a corral, and he told us his life story.
My grandfather lived in Southwest Pass in a place they call Pilot Town Bayou, and he fished oysters and things.
He told us that his grandfather used to work for the Coast Guard lighting navigational beacons with kerosene along the mouth of the Mississippi River. After he couldn't do that anymore, his son, Earl Armstrong Sr., Earl's dad, started doing the job, but by then they had batteries.
I was born in 44, May 11, 44. When I got old enough to start fooling with cattle, that's what I started doing, working with my uncles. I worked with them, and every once in a while, I wasn't on the pay list. Yeah, they'd give me a heifer, give me a calf or something, and I'd raise it of a cow. I never got paid, any money. I never looked for any. I just liked what I was doing. And if I needed anything, I could always get something if I needed it. I said, I need a motor or outboard or something. I could get it.
Armstrong told us stories of riding out hurricanes in the mouth of the Mississippi, including the time he couldn't make it back to shore and he had to tie himself to a small tree just to stay afloat. He showed us pictures of his family during their time in Pilot Town and told us that he didn't have power until he was a teenager. That's the 1950s, guys.
That's you? That's me. You can't see that big nose? That's me and my son, Jimmy. He's a bar pilot, a river pilot now. That's my cousin, Don. Him and I used to hunt together. We had 3 kids at Pilot Town, 2 girls and a boy. And those 3 kids went to Pilot Town School until it was not enough kids there to teach. When we had to leave, it was in 1974. After that, I'd work all my cattle from here.
Even though he lives up the river now, Armstrong makes his way all the way back down to where the cattle are every time there's a hurricane and stakes it out. Kind of like what my dad does, except arguably a lot more dangerous.
I don't believe in leaving my stuff, because if you're there and you got a leak or you got a rope broke, you can fix it. I don't care how bad it is. I tie up in Grand Pass now. That's where I'm going to be from now on.
And this is just a small part of the lengths Armstrong is willing to go through to take care of his cattle. He has a variety of cows, including Chalet, Brangus, and Black Angus, but he argues that the Brangus handle the watery environment the best. This makes sense. The Brangus is a hybrid cow. It's a cross between the American Angus and the Brahman. And with traits from both of these breeds, it has the innate ability to adapt to environments, but also has a high conception rate. Of course, this begs the question, how does Armstrong deal with this herd of wild cattle in one of the wettest ecosystems on Earth? He rounds them up using airboats.
One airboat can do what 10 horses can't do. That ain't no lie.
Armstrong and a few others drive their boats around the cattle like sheepdogs, and they corral the cattle into a custom-made barge. The barge sits on the edge of the marsh in Bennett's and has 4 heavy solid iron gates and pins. The barge has a few notable features: a large crane.
Yeah, it's a 10,000 pound crane.
And you use it for the gates, you said?
Yeah, pick them gates up.
You ever use it for the cow?
Oh yeah.
Yeah?
Oh yeah.
Custom wooden floors that stop cattle from slipping.
The floor being like this don't mess them up?
No, that's what they need to stop them from slipping.
Oh.
And a special door system that uses chains.
All you do is close this.
Wow.
That's it. Game
That's
over.
simple, huh?
It's a far cry from what Armstrong's uncle used back in the day. They used to argue about whether a motor-powered barge was worth the hassle of even making.
I wish they could see this bullet, because I guarantee you, they would have to say, yeah, you're right.
Once the cows are on the barge, which we didn't get to see, sadly, he brings them back to his farm in Boothville. There he gives the older ones feed and adapts the younger ones to it.
I had them tamed down where they wasn't crazy. That's why you see those feed troughs and stuff. I could come in there and walk right amongst them before I'd bring them to citrus land. Then the buyers would come and look at them.
He walked us to the back of his pen and showed us what some typical swamp cows look like. This was our first time laying eyes on any cows this video.
Y'all all right? This is my crew right here. Hey girl, he knows I got this stick. Can rub him. He likes that shit. Yep.
That's a big son of a gun.
He's about 1,700, I guarantee you.
Please tell me you love me, baby, at least 7 times a week. That's 1 time a day.
This fella here got hit with a horn in his side, and it busted his gut.
It's here in the pen that Armstrong takes care of their health needs, calling in doctors to look at issues like this one, but also to give them vaccinations. We asked him about the wild cattle up in the Bohemia Spillway, but he didn't really want to talk about it. Apparently, he's been asked to help before, but didn't really want to get involved because he didn't know who owned the cattle.
What's going on with cattle up the road? I don't know. I don't get in it. I help anybody that needs help, that wants me to help them. I'll help them with my barge. But I'm gonna damn sure let everybody know what I'm doing before I get started.
He says that when it comes to his cattle,
you can't catch every cow you got. It's impossible. I spent $10,000-$12,000 on pens to catch them sometimes, and they make you look dumb. If I see them, that's their ass. I can tell you. Yeah, I'm sorry, I got this down. But, I'm gonna get them. There's usually, like when we pen cattle, say there's 100 head of cattle on this island, and we pen them, and you might get about maybe 10 or 15 that you don't get. They'll go out in that marsh and lay down. They're not stupid, And usually, if you can find out which ones that is, you sell them, because that's what gives you the trouble. A bunch of damn troublemakers. It's hard to say that you're going to pen a drove of cattle and you're going to catch them all, because you ain't.
And he's lost plenty of cattle. In 2005, when Hurricane Katrina came, he lost all of them. That's 300 plus cattle gone one August morning. The footage you're seeing now is of damage from Hurricane Audrey in 1957, around when Armstrong was 13 years old. It may not have hit where he lived, but looking back at footage like this can give us a sense of how ill-prepared structures were at the time, at least in the face of natural disasters. Seems like a lot of risk versus raising cattle on high and dry land. My dad thought the same thing and started asking some of the hardest hitting questions.
Why y'all grow them out on the islands like that? What's better about that than having them right here close to you?
Well, I guess most of the time we had land there that we didn't have to pay rent, and we didn't have to cut them. We would cut 3 times a year, and I mean, I had a 500-gallon tank. It cost like hell.
Raising cattle all the way out at the end of the world just so you don't have to cut the grass? That sounds like something I'd do. But that land that he uses for the cows is disappearing fast.
How big are the islands?
They all depends on how much washed away. But the islands that's there now would no way be able to take care of the cattle I had 40 years ago. Everything is deteriorating. We used to have a well that we tie by and pick out shrimp to come to Venice and sell them. That well looked like it was built offshore. It's almost a mile from where it was when I used to trawl in the 60s.
Organizations like the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers are looking to combat this by making diversions in the Mississippi River, bringing new land-building sediment to the area.
They got a hell of a job too, the Corps of Engineers, because everybody's on their butt. And a lot of stuff that's on their butt is very well to be that way.
And one of the places building new sediment is Mardi Gras Pass in, you guessed it, Quinallahache, out where the wild cows roam. With that, we left Armstrong's farm.
Guys, we did it. We talked to Earl, we filmed his barge, we got drone footage. It stopped raining just in time for the drone footage. We did it. Say something, Dad.
Yay. Had a fun time with cows.
Fun time with cows?
Yeah, I love the smell of cow manure. I loved it as a kid. Even try and eat plates. Yeah, we pick the
Cow
plates
patties.
up and throw them at each other. Get a dry grain with wet in the middle. Those are the best. At least the rain held off just right, huh?
Little did we know, brewing in the Gulf was soon to be Hurricane Francine, and it was on a course right for Louisiana.
flood watches are in place for 9 million people. The Big Easy taking a direct hit from powerful winds up to 100 miles per hour.
Right now, Francine's still a Category 2.
Coastal communities along the Gulf Coast, including New Orleans, are most impacted.
So days after talking about hurricanes in Venice, I stepped outside to see how things were going in our Cat 2. Scared that our little old house would lose electricity like it always does.
Stepping out in the hurricane. Starting to come down.
Then I stepped out again.
All right, it's really coming down now, and I think, honestly, this might be the worst of it.
The situation has gotten even worse here in New Orleans. We're feeling now those hurricane-force wind gusts.
I've seen worse. I think we'll be fine. And also, Earl's cows are gonna do fine too. The storm isn't really going that way.
Francine weakened into a tropical storm overnight and will continue to weaken as it moves north into Mississippi, but it will still bring potentially record flooding and possible tornado threats to the region.
By the grace of God, we never lost power. Armstrong got a little storm surge, but everything seems to be fine over there. Meanwhile, I was trying to schedule a trip down to Point Allahash the day after a hurricane. This time, I brought Wilton Landry, owner of Bayonet Productions, and our efforts weren't as fruitful. It turns out that trying to find cows in the Bohemia Spillway is like trying to find Bigfoot. The fact that I saw them at all 2 years ago was a miracle in itself. This section of the video is sponsored by Red Stick Refinement. In this growing world of communication, Red Stick Refinement's owner, April Setliff, is finding an increasing need for manners. Her company offers etiquette classes for both children and adults. In her classes, she covers topics like how to host a party, how to set a table, and even how to write thank you notes. What some may find old-fashioned, Setliff is deeming etiquette for the modern world. Check out Red Stick Refinement socials, or schedule your next etiquette class by clicking the link in the description. Now back to our hunt for the elusive swamp cows. On a beautiful September day, we made our way down to the Belle Chase Ferry and got a little footage before we were told not to film. Then after another 30 minutes, we arrived at Beshel's boat launch in Point Allahash. Full disclosure, I've been here plenty of times. Growing up, my family rented a boat slip here, but the marina has been in decline in recent years. Don Beshel blames this on the Mardi Gras Pass downstream, that's fresh water destroyed the saltwater ecosystem in the area and is changing the landscape completely. If you want to read more about this, a few years ago I wrote an in-depth article called "Louisianians Have Sought to Tame the Mississippi River for Decades. Now they may set it free." The link is in the description. We met with Beshel in the marina shop, and he told us we might be out of luck if we wanted to see the cows that day. The main issue? We didn't have a boat, and all roads on the east bank end before the Mardi Gras Pass. Well, so if we did want to see them, what would be our best bet? I mean...
Oh, to see the cattle?
Yeah.
Your best bet would be to come down here and cross over. You're not going to be able to cross Mardi Gras Pass, though. You'll always see right here. You won't be able to get down here where the cows really are.
Of course, we asked boat owners around the marina if we could hitch a ride, and we were turned down a few times. Most of the boat owners we asked about the cows either hadn't heard of them or had heard of them through a friend of a friend. Only a few people had actually seen the cows themselves. But right as we were about to give up, I saw someone getting ready to head out on their boat, and I gave it a shot. He said yes. Our savior and pilot that day was Aubrey Hazel and his stepson, Eli Swallow. Hazel is a former captain for the Blackman's Parish Port Authority, and before we flagged him down, he was getting ready to go duck hunting on the first day of duck season. He drove us 20 minutes downriver from the marina to the pass. We weren't going to push our luck and ask him to go any further. Once we got there, the one thing I could see was what a difference 2 years makes. This is what the pass looked like the last time I made this trip. The trees were sprinkled along the rim of the waterways. And here it is now. Nothing but dense forest cover. We could have flown the drone around for hours. We weren't going to see any cows. After poking fun at the term swamp cows, the area truly had turned into a swamp. I'm gonna track us at a different angle leaving the pass.
Okay.
But besides that, man, thanks for bringing us out. I don't know. Sorry. It's not your fault. What'd you do, hide the cows?
And I mean, they walk. They could be a mile down, you know? You never know.
They could be anywhere. Going on this trip, I didn't even think we were going to be able to get on a boat, let alone see the cows. I just hated that I had let my videographer Wilton down.
Where's the beef? Where's the beef?
No cows, huh? You disappointed?
So far, not cows. I really wanted. I've never seen.
Maybe I was making it up.
I've never seen cows up close, but I've never seen swamp cows for sure. I thought they might have like some gills, like some webbed feet.
When we made it back, we waved Hazel goodbye and made our way back to Bechel for an interview. So when did you first hear that term?
Swamp cows?
Yeah.
Probably 40 years ago. They've been back there that long. The people that did it, they live across the river and it's straight across. So they would go and check on, see where the cows were and kind of know what numbers they had, but they would be breeding. After every storm, they would lose a bunch of cows and they didn't know what they would have and they'd have to go over there and try and figure out what they had.
We know from talking to Armstrong that cattle escape or die in every storm. So who's to say that cattle from one group don't end up in another?
It's been an ongoing thing and it's been kind of problematic for them because people saw the cows and, I mean, you hear stories, but you don't know.
Bechel, being a longtime expert at the land like Armstrong, says that raising cattle in this area used to be easier.
A long time ago, they had more land down and it was a lot easier to take care of them. The marsh was right, things were right. So as the land started to change with the fresh water, it became harder and harder to take care of them. Land disappeared. A lot of things like hogs came along and they started messing up all the land and it just got harder and harder for these people to take care of their cattle. When we used to be able to go all the way, probably 15 miles down, and you'd drive and you'd see them. But you know, that, other than that, you'd never know they were there unless you were hunting down there. So you would see them. So, and you wouldn't fool with them because they're wild cattle. You don't fool with them, they don't fool with you.
In this area where the fresh and salt water mix, Bechel says that the cows tend to stick with the fresh water that they can drink, which is right where we were. As we headed home, it seemed like this was the end of our swamp cow hunting journey. All I could do was hope that something would come along and allow us to see those fabled creatures of legend. In the meantime, Diamond finished her painting, picturing exactly what I wanted to see in person. A cow in the marsh, just living its life. Looking at the painting filled me with a sense of newfound determination. I was going to see the cows, even if I had to make the drive all over again. A little over a week later, all I could think about was the cows. I found a cow.
You won't be able to get down here where the cows really are.
What's going on with cattle up the road? I don't know.
I was having dreams about them and talking to all of my coworkers about them. Then I was sent down to Port Fourchon by Grand Isle to make a video. It's early in the morning, about 5:30. The sun is just about to rise and I'm driving through a thick fog. All I have are my thoughts. Cows. So many cows. As the sun rises, I come over the bridge onto LA1 and see nothing but marsh. After 3 hours of driving, something I'm used to at this point, I get to the port early and pull out my phone. I started looking for ranchers in the area on Google Maps. For sure, there had to be someone in this area raising cattle in the marsh. I made a few calls, but I was getting nowhere. That is until I came across one website, Triple Sun Farms. The website itself didn't seem promising. It just looked like a website for some regular old cattle farms. But I thought, you know what, I'll give the owner, Paul Dufresne, a call and leave him a voicemail. Later, while I was working, he gave me a call. To my surprise, Dufresne does have swamp cows. He has about 400 head of cattle over in Cutoff, Louisiana. For once, luck was on my side. It was just 30 minutes up the road. And on my way home after work, I made a stop. I talked with Ashley Petrie, Dufresne's secretary, who I didn't get any footage of. Dufresne was busy getting ready for another possible hurricane, so Petrie gave me a ride around the property. Coming over the levee, there they were, the cows I had been looking for this whole time. Under a group of cypress trees was a herd of black cows, minding their own business, not knowing how much they made my day. It wasn't long before my drone was off the ground and roaming around the property, chasing the cattle around. Some were tougher than others and got pretty close to the drone, but most of them ran away. Pretty soon, I had chased the cows into a line. Whoops.
I woke up to enjoy them, or maybe I forced out such a thought.
Every cow you see here is an F1 or first generation Brangus cow, specially bred and very expensive. These cows are very well looked after and sit behind a protective levee system in a drained marsh. Pumps like this one remove any water that makes its way over the levee during a storm. Triple Sun Farms sells their cattle seed online for ranchers looking to raise a similar herd, and just like Armstrong's, they are tagged and vaccinated. While the cows there eat special grass, they're also adapted to a special feed. Sound familiar? Meeting cattle owners like these in Armstrong gave me a growing appreciation for what goes into the craft, because that's what it is, a craft. Like an artist finding the correct materials to make their painting, the canvas, the paints. These cattle owners are finding exactly what they need. The cattle breeds, the land. We hung around with the cows for a few hours, but to me it felt like minutes. I had waited weeks to see these cows, and leaving, I called everyone I knew and sent them pictures. I had found them. But there was one more place to go. See, when I was doing research in the beginning, I had found the Southwest cattle grazing, but I never thought I'd actually go there. That is until my girlfriend's dad, Gary Gremillon, said he had a connection to the area. He knew a rancher that kept a herd of wild cattle in Johnson Bayou. So, if you're still along for the ride, let's go see some more cows. Just days after being in Cutoff, I was arriving in Sulphur, Louisiana. That's when all of our plans fell through. In the 11th hour, our plans to film Gary's connection were canceled, and we found ourselves scrambling to find something to film. I want to take a minute here to thank Gary's friend, Chad Trahan, or Hood, who recommended a place in Hackberry. Yet again, someone had come along with info that would save the video. Hood told us about an island with nothing but wild, untagged, inbred cows. Like a tribe with no human contact, these cows hadn't seen anyone in years. Turns out the cows were owned by John Backlund, who inherited the cows from his father-in-law when he passed away in a tragic cattle barge accident. He himself passed away in 2005. As far as we or any other locals that we asked know, these cows have had no human interaction since then. That's 19 years. No people, no vaccines, no feed, and no new cows. The island has no name on any map I can find, so from now on I'm deeming it Cow Island. With all of these rumors, we had to see it to believe it. So first thing the next morning, we made our way to Hackberry.
Who they are, we don't know. Now they call. We must go. Cow Planet.
Rocket. At the end of the road, we lifted up the drone and saw our first wild cow.
6, 5.
All of the rumors, all of our hopes were confirmed. No tags, no branding, just a cow living its life. Cow Island is 8 miles long with a half-mile width in the middle. Right there is a forest of tall trees that the cows use for shelter and shade. The rest of the island was desolate, barely even a blade of grass. We had a few theories. I thought the cows might have trampled the grass there until it died and never recovered, based on the results of an experiment I read by Robert Chabrick with Louisiana Wildlife and Fisheries from 1968. Gary says the island probably holds water, not from Gulf flooding, but from rain. This would explain where puddles of fresh water come from for the cows to drink. Both of these theories hold up. Chabrick observed in his study that when cattle grazed in marshland, not only did they trample existing flora, but their hoof marks caused decreased drainage. The hoof print not only destroyed the vegetation that it included in soft soils, but these did not become revegetated for several months. This relationship can be manipulated to a large degree by the landowner to suit the desired land practice. Now, this study may be 56 years old this year, with the experiments it references being 10 years older, but it is one of the only in-depth studies on the subject I can find. The cattle in the experiment were put in pens with uniform vegetation for a set amount of time to study their effects. It stands to be seen how an older study like this still relates to Cow Island today. We saw more on the other side of the island, but couldn't make it that far with the drone before losing signal. After a while of filming this one cow, we made our way to another property attached to an oil field looking for more. Gary had to open a lot of gates.
Damn, the chain ain't even locked.
Truthfully, we didn't know exactly what we'd find. Everything was extremely overgrown, and it felt like we were driving in circles.
See how the cow shit.
We found nothing but a few bug bites.
Definitely the cows on that island this morning.
Yeah, I think that's going to be exactly what you're looking for.
We knew where the cows were, and after having some famous Hackberry Park chili and burgers, we made our way back to Cow Island. And there, in the hot Louisiana sun, were even more cows. In total, we saw about 24 cows, all mixed breed in a variety of colors. After coming out to eat some grass and mingle, the cows would run back through the grass under the canopy. Guys, I don't think you can understand the joy I felt getting this footage. Everything I had searched for the past 2 months was right there in front of me. It was on our way home that Gary said something that really stuck with me. Kind of wrapped up my entire experience making this documentary.
I mean, we didn't get where we needed to go, but I mean, we made, what, chicken salad out of nothing?
Would you say the real cows were the friends we made along the way?
I didn't know what was going to happen going into making this. I hadn't seen the cows in 2 years. How was I to know if they were even still alive? And although the entire process took 2 months, I didn't ever have to go in alone. My dad helped me kick the whole thing off. Wilton helped me search, and Gary helped me wrap it all up. Together, we told the stories of the people and the cows that they raise. So the next time you find yourself driving along the road and see some fenced-in cows, know that somewhere there's an island. An island with big, strong, free cows. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe so I can keep making more like it. If you enjoyed the techno music, that's by my friend Stephen Foster. Go check him out in the link in the description. Finally, I want to thank my sponsor, April Setliff with Red Stick Refinement, for being my first sponsor ever.